Hey, oh, beautiful hair.
Thank you. I said I was going to do it, and then I was like, I'm just going to braid it.
It looks gorgeous. No, what are you talking about? It looks very beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just going to quickly, gentlemen, can I ask you guys to keep your voices down? Okay.
So, what's what I'm looking for? So cooperating of them, like wow.
I know.
Yes, exactly. So how are you? I know today has been a day for both of us. I may have napped a lot. Like it was really hard actually to human today. So how was yours?
Yeah, let's do like a quick temperature check. What's going on with you?
It's not
I'm
good. I mean, that's not bad. I'm like, it's not good. Freudian stuff? I don't know. I think things are well. They're okay, but definitely feeling very overwhelming. Think I found my true calling. And yeah, but it's like it doesn't pay anything, so it's all.
Oh no!
Okay, but how do you both get your hair so good, even on your bad days? Oh, they're so complimentary.
I know.
Oh, Sam. You were here, I'd be pawing at you like a kitten.
Meow.
Yeah. But yeah, how about you? How was your temperature check?
Today was a hard day. I spiraled a little bit.
Oh yes, we are going to definitely be talking about Ted Cruz because that man is the worst. Yeah.
Anyway, before we get into that,
we know that Latinx people or people of Latinx culture can sometimes be the worst. We recognize this. We're fucking Gina Rodriguez of like freaking Jane the Virgin fame and her N-word slinging. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we'll talk about that later.
all of it.
Yes. So yes,
Today was like a tough mental health day. I thought I was doing really well, and then I wasn't doing as well as I thought, and that was really hard. But I managed to recognize a few things, and I'm really lucky that you're using the mug I gave you.
Yeah.
Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know, at Christmas time, as a gag gift, I made everybody. I made some of my friends mugs with like my face on it. Drawing that someone did. I got it for free. Someone on Twitter once commented, if you like comment on this thread and share it, I will do a line drawing of your avatar. And I was like, okay, sure. And I never do this kind of thing, but I was like, she's got so many, there's no way she's going to get to it. And at that time, my avatar Twitter happened to be a picture of me making scary Jesus face, like Jesus in the.
Can you do it?
And so I was like, this is
my
funny.
mother will comment on that, by the way.
Huh?
My mother will comment on that, by the way.
I don't want to get in trouble. But anyway, so I made these mugs. It was like this avatar with me making my scary Jesus face, and someone did a line drawing of it, and I put it all over mugs, and I gave it to my friends for Christmas. So now my friends have mugs with me with a line drawing of me making this face.
Yeah, and it says "como chingas," which is one of Tanya's favorite expressions in Spanish. Yeah,
say it all the time. Como chingas. Which, by the way, reminds me your thing when you called Kendall Jenner. I forget their names.
Yeah.
When
they're not important enough.
When you called Kendall Jenner a pendeja, I laughed so hard. I literally burst out laughing, and I was talking to a friend of yours on Instagram chat, and I was like, and he like started laughing too, and I said, it killed me because Marcella doesn't normally swear like that. That's like, she beat me to it. And he was like, that's why I laughed, is because I've never heard her swear. And we had a good laugh. It was pretty great. It was pretty funny.
If my brother-in-law is here, then he will definitely beg to differ. I am known as the potty mouth, and I am like my nieces and nephews have like, yeah. So I actually have to say Shiza Minelli because Juliana has heard me say Shiza, which is shit in German. So yeah, like I'm known as a potty mouth. So
That is
yeah.
so funny because you never swear on my kids, and I'm definitely the potty mouth.
Oh, I swear on your kids, and I've always said that, and then you're like, oh, it's fine, they're fine. I'm like, right, like you don't
Yeah.
care, but most people do,
No,
and
I'm like, have
that's
you met me?
fine. People are allowed to care if their children are subjected to profanities, but at the same time, it's like they live on planet Earth where like our entire existence is profane. So I don't know, like
That's a thought. Our entire existence is profane.
it
That's a
is fudge,
deep.
man.
So Sam asked, "What is your calling? What is your calling?"
Volunteering. No, and like for real, like I was making care packages actually last night until like maybe 1 in the morning. And like I was like in a good mood. I was writing down like the things that were in all the care packages and everything. And like, and my mom was still up. She was keeping me company. And I was just like, man, just the thought of like doing this, like makes me feel energized and happy. And even like this morning when I crawled out of bed to do like the bit of community, like volunteering work that I did, I was like, this is so fun. But then, you know, as soon as I had to clock in, I was just like, oh, and legit, like it was hard to function. And like I was productive because, you know, but could I have been more productive? Yes. So definitely, I wish that it was a paid job to do like community service. But they're not really like paid jobs, and that's fine, right? Like I mean, I like to give of myself and my time, but at the same time, like I need to make money so that I can actually do these things. So it's yeah,
I hear you.
yeah.
I
I've
hear
met
you.
like a lot of older women volunteering. Like when I used to do a lot of volunteering for Bissell and for the youth empowerment support services, I would meet older women who were retired, and like that is what they did with their free time. And I was like, that is my goal. Like when
I
I'm,
was gonna be like, I want you
yeah.
to clarify what older women means because
Oh, like retired age.
okay,
No,
like
I am not an older woman, Tanya. My sister's not older women. My mother, who is in her 70s, older woman. 50s, still not old. Nah. I like relative to me, they're still están pollitas. They're still young chickens, as the saying
see,
says.
and it's hurtful to me because people are like, "Oh, you are old," and I'm like, "I beg your pardon."
I get that too,
Young,
but
like 21-year-old.
does it ever come out like do they ever say afterwards, but you look really like I didn't think you were that old? That's always like the second thing, and I'm like, oh, thanks.
Yeah, I get that a lot, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm not old. Like I'm hurtful. That's really hurtful, and I need you to know I'm not feeling that.
I feel attacked.
I still have so much to offer.
You poor thing. But
uh,
anyway, now that we've I think we're good. Like look
I
at us.
think
Like
we're good. Let's
we've
jump into
yeah.
it. Let's jump into it.
So we're still in Black History Month. Yay! That's good news. um, and as such, we will be talking about like obviously like Black history and Black stuff. That sounds really bad. But yes, we do want to recognize like a lot of accounts actually who are doing a lot of good. Like I know we linked to a lot of them, but we also want to talk about them. So before we get into, actually no, let's start with the good first. Any that you want to shout out this week, Tanya? Because I dominated last week.
You know what? We'll post some links
Okay.
when we post this, but I have learned so much from the Black Feminist Collective. They post really, really valuable resources. And yeah, I'm a huge fan of that account.
Yeah.
I'm always on there. Amanda Seals posted some really good stuff.
Yes.
They are not local, they're American, but I really, really love some of the stuff that they put out. So I will make sure that we link to those accounts in
I'm
the
writing
bio
them down
description.
because that is what I
I see you
do.
like
Actually,
taking
that's not what I
notes.
do. That is not what I do. I don't know why I'm like, it's Tanya that takes most of the notes. And I'm like, this is Mrs. Mudge. No, you're not better notes. My note taking is
Credit. That's
yeah,
mine.
no.
That's me.
Right. No,
What
and
about
then
you? What about you?
you introduced me actually to, oh my God, and I always forget their names. Three Token Brown Girls.
I love Three Token Brown
Okay,
Girls.
good. Because I'm like, did I say it right? I'm like, is that their name? Is it? Yeah. I know it's three, and I know that there's brown girls, but I don't know if the token is there. Anyway,
Yeah,
yes, they're wonderful.
great
Definitely
account.
I think they're one of our favorite pages. The thing that drives me bananas whenever I'm on their account is they'll post something that seems like it's common sense. Like, you should never come into a Black woman's like space and tell her how to do things. And then there'll be some person, usually it is either a person of color or a white person, usually women, who are like, well, like, I don't think somebody saying that what you said was insensitive or racist is blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, no, honey, no. So it's one of those things. So I've
Don't police it.
definitely, yeah, I definitely have learned a lot from them in terms of boundaries and protecting our space, which I know you and I are going to talk about one of our lives, because we have definitely encountered a lot of, and my cat is scratching the couch because she knows that I can't do anything. Oh God. Oh, my mom's gonna be so pissed. Anyway, so I wish we weren't live so we could just edit
pretend you
this
didn't
out.
know what happened. You can just, it's always been there, Mom. ¿Cómo? Sí, eso ahí siempre ha estado, mamá.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, so I think those are that's one of my really, like, one of the accounts that I really, really appreciate. And then there was, oh gosh, I feel really unprepared because I cannot think of any right now because Catalina just made me like.
It's distracting. It's distracting. But we're gonna link to all of these accounts in the description when we post this live. Just for anybody who wants to go back and access some of our favorite accounts. Yes, tell me.
I forgot to say Sankova YYC. Sorry, I didn't shout them out last week, but
yes.
That's who I had wanted to say. I did link them last week after the live because I wanted to make sure that people are aware of them. But they've been posting really amazing things. I'm definitely learning a lot about Black people throughout the ages, like things that the amazing contributions that Black people have done. So the 4-post bed that like is very luxurious and gorgeous, invented by a Black carpenter who fought his freedom at the age of 24 and died at the age of 64, which I was kind of sad about. Well, obviously death is sad, but for me I was like, he was free for 40 years, and then like that was like the pessimistic side of me. But then like the silver lining side of me was like, but he was free for 40 years and he managed to buy his brother and sister's freedom as well at the age of 34. So I was just like very amazed by the fact that the number 4 was such a big number for him. Freed at 24, freed his brother and sister at 34, died at 64. So anyway, I just thought that was very fascinating. And then so I think that those are definitely some really good accounts to follow. And I'm glad that we were able to talk about them. So yeah, now with the bad. So, and I looked before the live and it's still up. But Strathcona High School, they created a white student alliance club. So what the actual fuck? I remember when we were talking about this earlier this week, is one of those things where it's like, motherfuckers, like, you're so sensitive that you get triggered by anybody doing anything to uphold space for Black people who are worthy and deserve this kind of recognition and this kind of space. But the fact that these adolescents, really, because they're teenagers that founded this club, feel entitled to that is just very telling of the kind of society that we live in Alberta. Ted Cruz, you were born here. I blame a lot of your issues on the fact you were born in Calgary. Just kidding. Anyway.
Are we though?
I know.
No, but like, the trouble is like the myopia, right?
Yeah.
Of the whole thing. I mean, Ted Cruz, who his state is in crisis. And I think it's really important to note that many of the communities in Texas that have been the most deeply affected are more impoverished and are historically like Black and POC communities, because some of the wealthier areas, they still have access to power. They're okay. They're getting through this. The infrastructure has been made available to them. And so what we see is another example of how access to basic services like, trash pickup, road cleaning, power, natural gas, heating, and all that kind of thing is commodified, right? And it's just another example of these failings that, exist precisely because the United States has an ongoing war with poor people. They placate poor people. And it's, you know, and they, you know, want to chalk it up to this meritocracy, which we all know is bullshit. And Ted Cruz has the audacity to go on vacation after all of the criticisms that he has made. I mean, there was a clip that surfaced with him talking about criticizing Obama for playing pool. He was supposed to be responding. I can't remember what the crisis was just now because, of course, I can't. I'm drawing a blank. But he's like, you know, instead of like dealing with people, Obama is so out of touch. And this, like, guy is in Mexico with his family. Like, it just, the dissonance there is, it's not just like baffling. It's not just like, I can't believe you would do that. It's like offensive. It goes beyond, like, we expect this kind of thing from politicians. I mean, we saw it in our own politicians when UCP members and people who held like high ranking posts within the UCP were, you know, traveling overseas on vacation and had to be called back. We see that kind of social apathy and like this flaunting of not only money, but like resource and access. And they do it without, like, with impunity. And we see that in Ted Cruz. And, you know, the thing is that we can acknowledge that this guy, yeah, he is technically, I mean, he's technically Latino, right?
Yeah, his parents are Cuban or whatever, yeah. And he speaks really horrible Spanish.
The problem is when we see politicians that are weaponizing raza to be like, oh, I'm so, like, I am an everyman, and we know that you're not. And we see Latinos do this a lot, where we turn our backs to racial struggles and racial strife. And then, you know, but we pull out our Latino card when it suits us, right?
Oh my God, like that jerk who attacked that kid. Like that crazy, I'm sorry, that horrible woman who attacked that young 14-year-old boy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a woman of color.
I'm Puerto Rican and Greek and whatever. And I'm a woman of color.
I was like, I don't think you know how this works. Yeah.
And that's the thing is, you know, when we talk about colorism, when we talk about the responsibility that we have within our own racialized communities, people with lighter skin, we have a responsibility. We have an obligation to hold space, right? It's not even about being the loudest voice. It's not about being like, you know, I've had these discussions before where we talk about the kind of like racism, discrimination that we have been subjected to individually. But when you're saying this to people who have a darker complexion and you weaponize your, you know, that racialized identity, right? And when I say racialized, all I mean is non-Anglo, because everybody else is going to deal with this, right? When we talk about white supremacy, we're talking specifically about Anglo, right? So generally speaking. So when you weaponize that and you're like, oh, but I'm not like that, because, you know, it discounts every single time that we have been discriminated against and we've been the victim and it's been reversed. And it's possible for all of us to weaponize our like cultural background, you know, our racialized pasts.
For sure, yeah.
And we do ourselves a disservice. Like, we do our own communities a disservice. So why the fuck would you be like, oh, I'm a woman of color, yo soy puertorriqueña, like, when it, y ni siquiera hablaba español. That was the thing. Ni siquiera hablaba español, and she's like, Puerto Rican.
Yeah, but there's like a few people who, like, I know, like, my parents are very proud of the fact that, like, you, like, having been born in Canada, speak Spanish flawlessly, because that is like a rare thing, right? Like, I mean, I kept my Spanish because my parents were adamant that I was not going to lose my culture. And like, you know, like, I've met other Latinos who unfortunately, like, they like that's the first thing to go. And I mean, it sucks for them, but I mean, like, that's actually like, it's a part of being Americanized and a part of the diaspora, I think, or diaspora, there we go. Because it is something that, like, our parents want us to lose because they want us to not be, profiled because of our accent. They don't want us to be profiled because we're speaking Spanish. And it's really funny, actually. Sorry, this is like very like a tangent thought, but when I spent Christmas with my sister in the U.S. a few years ago, it was actually really interesting because I noticed that whenever we went out with my family, like my parents, my other sister and her husband, and everyone, right? My sisters and my mom and my dad would all speak English. And I was like, because like I don't believe in that. Like I am very much like I speak to my parents and my sisters and like my nieces and nephew in Spanish. And even my brothers-in-law, like sometimes like I'll say things like to them and they understand. Like both my brothers-in-law really are good because well, they've been part of our family for like over a decade now. But it's one of those things where I'm like, where I noticed that my family was actually very hesitant and they were very aware of the fact that they didn't want to get discriminated against because of our language. And it's one of those things where you're like, oh my gosh, like we really are still in like a super racist like timeline, like that's why like it always disheartens me when I think about all of the racist crap that other people of color like look at the poor Asian community, especially elders and of Asian descent in the US where they're getting attacked just because like they're Asian. But that's something that Sikh elders and Muslim elders had to contend with right after 9/11 because some people thought that because somebody like a Sikh man was wearing a turban or because somebody was speaking another language and they were brown, oh, they had to be terrorists, so those things actually spiked. And it's very telling to me how racism is just, it's never going to go away.
Well, the thing though, I mean, to
We
go back
should
to the
still
point
fight
about,
against it. Sorry, I should say that. Sorry. I'm not saying be lazy. I'm just saying I don't think it's going to go away, but keep fighting.
the thing is, to go back to your point about, your parents and how they feel about my Spanish.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing is that that really was kind of a trauma response if we think about it, because
Really?
for anybody who doesn't know, yeah, absolutely. For anybody who doesn't know me, I was married for a long time to a Canadian guy who I didn't understand when we got married that he was actually really super racist. And my Spanish has always been pretty good. I mean, we always kind of, spoke it in the house, and, and I understand that as parents, sometimes you feel, or some parents might feel concerned because kids who come from racialized backgrounds, we have to learn how to code switch, right? That code switching is is a means for self-preservation, right? It keeps you safe. But it can also be exhausting, and sometimes you mispronounce words, or sometimes you're literally translating things from one language to the next and you kind of get stuck and you're like, what is that word again?
Or
And
you
you can
only
really
think of it in the one language, not the other. It always happens with French and Spanish for some reason.
yeah, absolutely. And it depends on like what the
Yeah.
subject is too, right? That sometimes like I'll automatically think in French if I'm
Mm.
thinking about something that I would have learned in French, or that I used a topic that I was more comfortable, speaking about within French circles, French
Yeah,
speaking circles. So it
for
really
sure.
depends. But
Yeah.
then, with Spanish, that was something that has always been such a big part of my identity,
Yeah.
and my Latinidad. And so when I came out of my marriage, because I had been disallowed from speaking my language and practicing my culture and doing all these things for so long, because my husband forbade it, my husband hated it. In the time that we were together, he never learned to speak Spanish. He always said he was going to, but he never did. And he would get really angry when we would speak Spanish in his presence, even in my mother's house, right? He would, tell us that we were being rude. And so in order to include him, we only spoke English, and my mom wouldn't make foods that offended him. And see, you're rolling your eyes. It was, you learn to hide that part of yourself. And, if I was speaking on the phone with my mother at home and he wanted to know what I was talking about, he would like slam his hand on the table and be like, in English, we speak English. And he would get really angry. And so when I finally left him, that was something that I felt like I really needed to reclaim for myself. I needed to be able to be as authentically myself as I could be. And I was looking for reasons to hear my language spoken and to connect, because I felt so, I remember there were times that when I would come home and my mom would be making tortillas and I would pick one up, and I was so homesick because I wasn't allowed to come home without him. And she would make these tortillas and I would pick one up, like una tortilla fresca, and you smell it, and you smell the sweetness of corn.
Yeah.
And I missed it. And I was starving, not physically, but I was starved for something that felt, like it was my own. And so that I realize now, and I think we see that a lot in cultures where, people are in countries and in regions where people are colonized, where people are suppressed, that you will often revert to this cultural fundamentalism and sometimes religious fundamentalism. Certainly we see that in the Middle East, right? Where people have reverted to that. And that is a trauma response if we think about it in a really, really basic form. And so being able to connect to that, in my language, that has been such an important part of my life spiritually. And so when I see people that weaponize that are like, but I'm not, I get a free pass, or we're all POC, whatever. And so you don't take accountability for the harm that you leverage on other communities. It really kills me. Like, it really, really kills me, because I've had to fight to get that back. And I'm not going to have somebody profane my language and my culture and my people by being like, I am beyond scrutiny. No, we are a very complicated people. We are not monolithic, and we have to be having honest conversations about who we are. And when you pull it out as it suits you and hide it when you're ready to appeal to white audiences, that's the part that I really struggle with.
Oh, for sure. No, and I completely understand that. And that's one of the things that I don't know if you can see the comments. Can you see the comments? Sam is applauding.
Huh?
Sam is giving you all like high tens, I guess. Like 10.
I can't see that.
I know, that's why I was like, can you see that? Like, okay, that really sucks. Next time,
I flipped my camera. Oops.
I think I know how to do it. You have to request to join.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll go live, or you'll go live, and whoever is not on the live will request to join. Okay. And that will be how we do it, because that's when I can see the comments, is when I request to join. I don't know. Instagram really has but Instagram is making it really hard for me to be smart, because it's the worst. But yeah, so having said all that, it's one of those things where what do you want to bet that a lot of actually I shouldn't say this, but I'm pretty sure if we were to look, because their following increased. The Strathcona high school white supremacy group, that's not what they're called. It's actually the White Student Alliance. They have over 200 followers now, and I was like,
you're kidding.
Yeah, and when we saw it on, what day was it, Tuesday or Monday, they didn't have many. They had they were in their teens, and I was like, how?
Like 17 followers or something.
Yeah, so now they're over 200, and I reported them. So
I bet you anything that some of the people who join this Facebook group, they're not students. It's just local white supremacists that are like, yeah, we have to fight back against Black supremacy, which is not a thing. Black supremacy is not a thing. Like, we are not under threat of being wiped out by Black supremacy.
It's such a funny thing. I'm thinking of a Dave Chappelle skit and what he would do if that was if that were what was happening. Oh, it'd be glorious. Anyway, I know he's problematic, but he did make some really good skits. But another thing that I wanted to say is the systemic racism in policing. Over the summer, I remember when you and Sam, our friend Sam, made some really beautiful cardboard, posters. And one of the ones that you made was how the policing disproportionately targeted Black and Indigenous people on the. This is me holding it, by the way, and this is how it read, because that's how my brain works. Anyway, so disproportionately targeted Black and Indigenous people, and it's true, and we see it even now with the pandemic, and how the police kicked out those very vulnerable unhoused community members because they were eating food. I don't know what they were eating. I'm pretty sure it was sandwiches. So they had to remove their masks to eat. And I can't remember who it was, but one of my friends was joking with me that, and this is horrible. This is not but it's one of those things where I almost wish that in protests they had done this, where fine, we'll wear a mask and just shove the sandwich in and just stare at them angrily. But obviously they can't do that. But I was like, man, It's just it's a funny image and it's horrible, but it's one of those things where you wish somebody had done that, because if you look at the video that the Bear Clan took, the person who is talking to the police, they say, "Oh, you guys suck," and it's one of those things where like I can feel her impotence, because that's the kind of comment that I would make when I'm under distress, because I would be so angry that that's the only thing I could trust myself to say, and just hearing the way that she says it, it's like kind of breathy. It's just you can tell that it's like, I can't say anything worse to you because I don't want to get arrested, because that's what I don't want to escalate it anymore for these people. And it's just,
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and it's frustrating. But what were you gonna say, my dear?
And now, EPS is backpedaling and they're saying things like, oh, well, we should have handled it a little bit better.
No shit.
And John Ivison now has released a statement being like, I'm disappointed that this is what we did. Like, the lack of responsibility.
From
and
him
EPS is like,
him and Scott McKean. Sorry, him and Scott McKean, man.
Oh, and Scott McKean, who's like just gross. And the people are not taking responsibility. And EPS is like, we do take responsibility, and we feel that they should have been shown some compassion and whatever.
Duh.
The problem is that none of this is new, and we're not doing enough. Like these anti-racism and inclusivity and like implicit bias workshops, they're not working, and it's not enough. And the problem is that racism is institutional. What?
Oh no, keep going. I'm so sorry. I just remembered. Yeah, because Amy Cooper, the woman who called the cops on the bird watcher in New York, she didn't have to do, like, her consequence was anti-racist, like racial bias training. And it's like, no, that's all she had to do.
And the problem is
that weaponized her whiteness and her feminism, like her femininity against this poor man. Sorry, I look very crazy right now, but
but you're absolutely right. The problem is that this is a woman who is well versed enough to have the language tools to then turn around and weaponize them. And so this goes beyond training. This is a woman who needs some sort of punishment, right? There needs to be some sort of like a tangible consequence for this kind of bullshit. Because when you say things like, we can talk about it from like restorative justice perspective, and the part that really gets me is that restorative justice is offered to white perpetrators of harm, of violence, and not to the community at large, right? Because Black people and the POC community, we are still viewed as being more inherently dangerous. So it's not an option if you are BIPOC, right? It's an option if you are a white woman who, like, it was so unbelievably dangerous. There was a video that I saw recently of a Hispanic male who was freaking out on police. They broke down his front door, and he was a student, and he freaked out on them. He was washing his dog, and someone called police and said that he had an AK-47, which in the state that he's in, he's allowed to own it, right? And so they break down the door, and he complied with police. And then when he was let up and they realized that they had the wrong place, they didn't have a warrant, he called them on it and was like, I have a warrant. I am legally allowed to own an AK-47. You guys didn't know that I am a felon, and that I would not, like, I can't do anything that is going to, like, break my parole, but you guys don't know that. You guys didn't have a proper description. You guys, all you had to go off of was Hispanic male. I just got out of class, and, these are people, and he's freaking out. He's like, if I had not handled this situation as well as I did, the outcome could have been very different, and I would have been just another dead brown body that nobody would have cared about, and that would have been a casualty because of your guys' recklessness. And he called them out on it in a way that was so brave and eloquent, and was like he knew his rights, and they weren't fucking with some you know, was someone who was uneducated, who didn't know, who, you know, was going to just let them do whatever they did and let them get away with it. He spoke very, very eloquently to them in a moment when someone else might have been much more panicked. And he was like obviously upset. And the police officer who was there was like, or the officer in command was like, are you gonna calm down? Are you gonna let me talk? And he's obviously been caught with egg on his face, but he can't, like, ¿qué le va a decir? Right?
Yeah.
Honestamente, en ese momento, él qué le iba a decir? Right? To
Yeah.
this guy who's calling him out and he's like, you needed to have a description. Legally, this is not enough to break down my front door. Who the fuck is gonna fix my front door? This, and he nailed it. And this
Yeah.
video is like starting to go viral. And you know, the thing is that when we talk about punishments and policing and racism in policing, restorative justice is an option that is typically not afforded to other people. We are brutalized in ways that white communities are not,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
and so, you know, to see the response that's coming out from politicians and EPS now, where they're not talking about tangible change. They're like, oh, we're going to try to be like more, you know, sympathetic. They're not even evaluating the racial aspect, right? And that, it's so myopic. Like, there's topados, they still don't get it. They
Yeah.
still don't get it.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that we're talking about that because that's the thing. Like right now, like especially with anti-racism YYC, they've actually posted some really good like photos of, you know, police in baby, I know you want to come in. Hold on. Sorry, my cat wants to come in. Of police interacting with anti-maskers and supportive anti-Muslim organizations. And here, even in Edmonton, we see, you know, or what was it, like a year and a half ago, when an Indigenous man brought forward a complaint to the city of Edmonton that he was carded at the mall, the city center mall. And it's one of those things that, like, you hear about carding happening all the time in Toronto, but it happens here. You know, they overwhelmingly target Indigenous people. And like when I go on my lunch break, I'll sometimes go to the mall, you know, if it's, well, actually this was pre-COVID. Now I don't even go to the mall. But it's one of those things where like you definitely notice it. Like, you remember that one time that you and I actually stayed, we were still in front of the Winners because we didn't want to leave because two security guards were harassing like a man who was sleeping. And I remember there were more people there and a few people had their phones out. And I think that that's very important to talk about, is what you can do if you have privilege. So obviously, like, you know, in proximity to, like, I'm not as privileged as other people, but I do know that because I read a certain way, I know that I have like certain things at my disposal in my privilege arsenal. So I mean, like, what we can do is you can always record. You can get their badge numbers. You do not leave the community member alone, because you need to bear witness to the abuse that they're undergoing. And it's more than likely that the police will behave themselves if there are witnesses. That is the hope and the expectation. But right? But you can also, and I know that this sounds like a chore, but writing to your MLA and city councilors is a really big one. It's amazing how much they respond to that, especially if there's an overwhelming show of support for those community members. So I think that that's something that maybe you and I can do in the future, is maybe like have a letter writing campaign, just because like this is like a thing that's not near and dear to my heart in the sense that like I've lived it, but in the sense that like it is just very distressing, you know.
And we witness it all the time because you
Oh
and I
yeah,
live, like, we spend a lot of our time in the downtown core, right?
for sure.
And so
Yeah.
to for anybody who is curious about the news story that Marcella was talking about, there was a story that came out about 2 years ago about a man who I want to say it was about 2 years ago, about an Indigenous man who was complaining about carting in city center and how Indigenous people are often just thrown out for simply occupying space, even if they've made purchases. They might, you know, be literally enjoying food in the food court, and they were being ejected. And this must have been more than 2 years ago. I would say maybe
Probably
4 or 5 years
maybe
ago
4 or 5 years
now.
ago. Yeah.
The man who was complaining was an outreach worker, and
Mm-hmm.
he was at city center specifically because he was looking for people to meet with them and provide services. And that was a neutral meeting space for everyone. And he had purchased a coffee. Everyone had been provided with snacks, and it was and they were there spending money, and they just happened to be sitting around talking. That was his job, right? And so he was ejected from there. The incident was recorded. It made, I believe it made national news.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's specifically what we're talking about. So if you do happen to experience that, or be within the vicinity of someone who is being mistreated, not only by law enforcement, but like just in general, I mean, any sort of racist act, we have to bear witness to. We have to start calling this stuff out. We have to start pointing out when it's wrong and coming to the defense. And we say this all the time, and we cannot stress it enough. We have to protect BIPOC community members by any means necessary. If it takes putting yourself, between them and an attack, then that's our responsibility to do that, because chances are we can leverage our own privilege to keep other community members safe. And so if it is safe to do that, if you feel that this is something that you are capable of doing, then there is no reason why you shouldn't. Yeah. If the situation feels dangerous, obviously do not put yourself in harm's way. Sometimes someone is just going to be spewing racist insults, and if you are a bystander, and you feel safe enough to call it out, then you have to do that. Obviously, do not put yourself between police officers and someone that they may be trying to apprehend. This is a bad idea, but record the shit out of it. Yeah. Record it and let them know that you are watching, and demand badge numbers. We need to demand accountability from EPS. Mm-hmm. Especially they can't continue to operate with impunity.
Yeah, especially because our own lawmakers are not calling it out. Like I know I shared that video with you of the live that Aaron Paquette had with Dave Shepard and Janice Irwin, and it was just one of those things where you kind of realize, like, so you're gonna say that it's UPCP's fault, okay? What now? Like there's no real solution that any of them could come up with. And never mind that, we have heard other people within our community having these like really wonderful ideas, and so that actually brings us to the last point about discussing mutual aid. So one of the things is that we want to talk about mutual aid is because we are actually going to be doing our first ever giveaway. So before we get into it, we want to talk about mutual aid and how it's beneficial to our communities. So do you want to take it away, or do you want me to take it away?
Why don't you get started and I'll chime in.
Okay. So with mutual aid, like it is beneficial to everyone in the community in the sense that everyone looks out for their own. So for a really good example of like a mutual aid initiative was actually started this summer. And granted, Treaty 6 outreach has been around for a while, but I'm a really big fan of theirs. I think they're wonderful, and I think they do a lot of good for the community. And the thing with them is that they were the only people who really went to bear witness and look out for the people that erected that camp over near the Telus baseball field, or right across from it. And when they did that, Camp Ecowewen was born. And that community, I know that there's a lot of criticism that has come out about it, but at the same time, they were able to keep community members safe. They fed community members. I think by and large, the community in Edmonton came out in support of it. Obviously, there were still really horrible people who had really awful things to say about it, and who would spew profanities at the people who, the campers and the community members who were living there. Nevertheless, I saw a lot of show solidarity from people that I didn't ordinarily think would care. And I know that that's a horrible thing to say, but rich white people don't usually care. But they were really nice, and they gave a lot of really good supplies, food, all that stuff. I really want to say that it's the thing with mutual aid is it is like a movement that has to do with that comes from, I think, the goodness of people. Because when you see somebody who is struggling, when you see somebody who is asking for food, even just, you know, saying hello to them, I know it doesn't seem like much, but that is actually showing care to your fellow human. So a lot of people complain, oh, like this panhandler, you know, he always harasses me on my way to work. And it's like, yeah, but did you know that that panhandler, like, you can always just say hi to them. You can always just have a conversation. If you know that that person's going to be there, maybe, you know, engage in a conversation with them every once in a while. If you know that they're going to be there, get them a coffee. The Nook Cafe is another business, or is a business, I should say, that actually does a lot of good for its community. What is that coffee thing called, Tanya? You're better with words.
Cafe Sospeso.
No, no, no.
Suspended coffee.
Oh, that's what it's called. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, Cafe Sospeso. So it's
You
actually
said
an
it. You said it in
Italian
Italian,
tradition.
so I was like, well, I don't know what that means, Tanya.
Yeah, yeah. It's because
Do
it's
I
an
look
Italian
Italian?
tradition. It originated in Italy,
Yeah.
and it was this idea that you would go in and you would buy an extra coffee for somebody who might come in and maybe couldn't afford a coffee that day, or maybe forgot their wallet, or whatever the case might be. You were basically taking care of your community, and so you were buying an extra coffee for another community member to be able to enjoy. And so the Cafe Sospeso was born, and there are plenty of examples of people that have sort of built on that. There's a pizzeria in the States that you can buy an extra slice of pizza for a community member, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the Nook Cafe has done this beautifully
Yeah.
because of where they're located. They are in a prime location for houseless community members who might be needing to access services or might be taking transit, whatever the case may be. And often people will go in there looking to warm up, looking for a respite from the cold. And so you have the opportunity to buy a coffee for these community members who might be looking for a break, um, and you would just prepay for it. And when a community member goes in, they can be discreet about it. They would reach into a jar, pull out a button, and they pay for the coffee using the button. And it's a really dignified way to receive that kind of charity as well, because sometimes asking for help can be really hard. So it's a really dignified way to do it. And so if you have the opportunity, we are huge fans of the Nook. Make sure that you are supporting them because they do so much good for the community. We've got a lot
For
of love.
sure. Yeah. And like that's the thing. Like we really want to touch on the fact that there are other ways that you can help community as well. We like Tanya and I are thinking about making a series of like how to prepare care packages that you can then donate to organizations such as Treaty 6 Outreach. There's a few others that have come who have come up because of the pandemic. So Water Warriors is kind of new, and they do the same thing where they do outreach. We follow them, and they usually post some really beautiful stories about the people that they interact with. They have gone out in the -40 cold, and they help people pitch tents. They help people find warm blankets, jackets, all that stuff. So if you have the means, donate to them as well. Another organization that is really near and dear to me is, like I said, Treaty 6 Outreach. So we're going to post a few accounts to links to accounts that we think that you should follow on social media. And we want to also talk about the Black Mutual Aid Fund started by BLM Canada. So you're smiling. They want to raise at least $500,000 to support at least 2,000 Black individuals and families in Canada. They're going to start receiving applications to support, are going to open on February 21st. And so it's a really good way to support. Honestly, like I think the best thing to keep in mind is when you're making these kinds of donations to people, even strangers that you meet on the street, or if you're going to be donating to organizations like Treaty 6 Outreaches, gift cards so that they can go into a cafe or a store to buy things that they need, or even just to get a respite from the cold, as Tanya said. Boots, camping gear. Another really good one is bus tickets. So I usually carry bus tickets because I'm really bad at carrying cash, because I will just spend it as soon as I get it. So because I know that I am not a good person with cash, I usually just carry bus tickets, and I will give them out if I come in contact with somebody. I've offered to buy somebody a meal as well. I know Tanya's done that a few times as well. So there's a lot of ways that we can look out for each other and that we can protect our community members, because let's be real, they need our support, they need our love. And instead of turning our back to them, I think that it's really beautiful, and I think that it says a lot about us as a community when we can actually uplift those people and provide them with those resources. So that's why we really want to do this giveaway, because we really wanted to highlight that mutual aid, sorry, I can't speak right now. Mutual aid, especially in terms of the pandemic, is, I think, what's going to save us, to be perfectly honest. You
I
know, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Oh, like that other cafe, another thing that was started here in Edmonton was like a community kitchen where people were actually getting together to build or to make food for people who, didn't have food. Another example was Padman Natty's, when they said, if you don't have food, if you don't have groceries, please DM us. No questions asked. We will deliver that food to you. The Al Bashir Mosque do so much good for
Al
the
Rashid
community.
Mosque.
Thank you so much. Yes, they house. No, I knew that I was gonna. I was like looking at you. I was like, I knew she's gonna know. They house community members. They do so much. I honestly, like, I'm terrible with names. I'm good with names if I know people, but I'm bad with names if I just know them in theory. But it's one of those things where, like, definitely it's. I think that it's definitely opened my eyes to people, and I always get called out for this, because I'll be talking about how much I love humans in one breath, and then I'll remember the racist things that people do and the horrible, violence against women or other community members, and I'm like, right, I hate humans. But for the most part, I think we're good. I think we're a good species. I want to make the argument that we deserve to be on this planet. Anyway, tangent. Do you want to talk about the giveaway then, Tanita?
Well, before I do that, I also just wanted to say, the amount of, hold on just a second, guys. The outpouring of support that we have
Yes.
seen during this pandemic has been very
Yeah,
heartwarming.
it has. I
I'm very,
agree.
and we've seen a lot of community members step up, and sometimes we hear things like, well, I don't know, like, I feel like I don't often have the opportunity. If you spend any amount of time in the downtown core, or any place where that is easily accessible via transit, it often, you will find people, even if it's at, outside of the 7-Eleven, or outside of the outside of a Shoppers Drug Mart or something. And the easiest thing, I'm not always in a position financially. I mean,
Yeah.
to be able to donate money or to give things. But, my thing is, if I, especially like when I just got paid, or if I have like a little bit of extra money, it takes zero effort when you're walking past someone and you say hello, because hopefully you're greeting them, because they sometimes just want to be acknowledged, and maybe they won't respond. Maybe
And
they
that's
will.
okay. Honestly, they're not there to serve you. They're
Yeah,
not there to give
exactly.
you like a happiness boost or serotonin
Yeah.
boost. Like, yeah, treat them like humans. It's
But
like,
you can literally just ask, hey man, I'm going to the Sev. Do you need anything?
yeah.
Like, can I get you something? Have you eaten? Or, and it depends on how much money you have, and you can just say, like, I've had to say to people, oh, can you get this for me? I'm like, okay, so I have like $13 in my bank account and I have to get this. Do you
Mm-hmm.
need anything else? Like, do you need anything? Like, what can I get you? Like, can I get you like a drink? Do you
Yeah.
need like, toilet paper? Like, what do you need? Right? And they're usually pretty understanding. Like,
Yeah.
they're not going to hold that against you. And sometimes it's literally as simple as just being like, hey man, I'm going in here, can I get you something? And
Yeah.
often it's literally, I remember this guy broke my heart. Ay, que me saludó as I was walking into the Shoppers Drug Mart.
Yeah.
And he was there, and he's hanging out in the cold. It was the one just off of White Ave, and he's hanging out in his wheelchair, and he goes, he says, good morning. And I said, hey friend, how you doing? Whatever. And he's like, oh, I'm doing good. Just like, it's nice to see smiling faces. And it was
Mm-hmm.
cold, and it was like a wet, like a wet snow that had fallen.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm coming in here. Like, do you need anything? And he was like, you know what? I actually just really want a grape soda. And I said, okay, like, I can get that for you, no problem. Like, do you need anything else? And he was like, no. He was like, he said, I need a lot of stuff. He was like, but if you could get me that would be really awesome. I was like, all right. And I went in there. That day I happened to have money. That day I was like, I can do this. And so it's just like, you get him a grape soda. I picked up a gift card. You don't have to do that. But it, like, just humanizing them, just humor them. It doesn't have to be a really complicated thing. It's literally just like, hey man, I can spare a few bucks. Can I get you something?
Yeah.
Right? And it's literally that simple. So when it comes to mutual aid, we are huge proponents of it, and we wanted to help bring a little more awareness. I am so excited about this giveaway. We are going to be putting together some prize packages. We have picked up some really cool stuff from Glass Bookshop, books about mutual aid from Glass Bookshop. We have some stickers from Eye Rolls and Bloodline.
Yay! Yes.
Amazing. Make sure that you're following them. And Free Transit Yeg, we have a beautiful framed print from Free Transit Yeg. And we've got some stickers from Absurd Collective that were created to help support Pekaway. For anybody who hasn't seen some of the stickers that they put out, I'm gonna flip this around and show you what one of these stickers looks like. Here's one of them. I've got it on my computer. Yeah, and then there's another one. It's a mutual aid sticker.
Yeah.
There's a mutual aid sticker that they created to help raise funds for Pekaway. They also had a sticker at one point that was like a pig wearing a pig hat.
I think they still have it on their website. Yeah, I think they still have it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great sticker. It's on my phone. But they have done a lot to support T60. So we are super excited to be offering products from all of these and we're going to be putting together some prize packs. So if you are interested and if you want to enter, we are so excited. Make sure that you are following us and you are following T60.
Yes.
And we're gonna post the draw. You'll have to tag 2 friends. And the draw will be completed. We'll give everybody the timelines and all the details in like a really official looking post. So make sure that you keep your eyes open for that and make sure that you share it. We're so excited about it. And if you can, make sure that you are supporting T60. If you have the ability to do that, if you have the financial ability, you can donate to them. We really think it's so important that we're doing a little more to help support community. Mutual aid is the way to do it. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and we'll be disseminating more information about mutual aid and how it works in the days to come.
Yes, and another thing I really want to say, if you guys do want to get in touch with Treaty 6 Outreach and see if they're looking for specific donations, please stay tuned to their Instagram page. They're really, really good at updating that, and reach out to them via email. So it's treaty6outreach, one word, @gmail.com. So yeah, like that concludes our show. It was a lot longer. I think we were actually at an hour today, or close to an hour. Yeah, I know. We need to get better at not talking. No, I need to get better, and I do admit this, at not going off on tangents. So I will do better next week, I promise. But we might have a guest next week, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in. We love you.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. I just want to share one of the comments that Sam made, which was really funny, and I guess you didn't see it, Tanya, but she said that every time the police is racist, they should lose 5% of their funding. New policy, police defunded in under a year. And I'm like, that is an idea. Yeah, she's being a smart, you guys. All right. Well, then, I thank you very much for tuning in. We love and appreciate you guys, and this will also be uploaded later. So, yes. Love you, Tanita.
Okay, love you too. Bye.
Bye.